Hello fellas, your favorite free man is back in his seat and it is time for me to tell you guys another story. So, in my last video that I uploaded just a day ago, I told you guys about how terrible furries are, and, well, in all due truth and reality, my opinions on the furry fandom is quite extensive and requires a much larger video. I will settle with this for now. I don't hate the fandom, but I do not like the fandom, and it is a bit creepy. And considering the sheer fact that a fair few of you come from the Neckbeardia YouTube channel, you probably do enjoy a good story that tells about a train wreck of a furry. And believe me, this is quite the train wreck, because this is the story of the worst 2 D&D bios I have ever read in my entire life. And in order for you to get a little bit of an understanding of how terrible it is on the level of Kitty Tan. Need I say more? Let's begin. First, to set the scene. As some of you know, I like to travel around various Discord servers for shits and giggles, and in this particular occasion I was looking for collaborators, so I was going to various Discord servers to see what manner of people I could find. Then I stumbled upon a Discord server dedicated to D&D, and it was named Eldramir. Eldramir, and its basic premise was that the Discord server had professional dungeon masters that you could hire. These people could create a campaign for you as long as you sent in character bios, and they could structure something that could work for everyone, as good as they could anyways. And they would only cost a few dollars per player, and as such you could have an easy experience. And the price tag, well, would vary depending on the size of the party. And as such, you could have it fairly easily set up. As I got in on the server, very quickly I got into conversations with the leader of the Discord server. And as I talked to him for a little while, he wanted me as a voice actor for one of his bosses in one of the D&D campaigns. However, I could not do that. Our time zones were very different, and I did have not that much time to dedicate to play D&D at the time anyways, and I still don't, which is a shame, but it is what it is. So I offered my services through other means, and as such, we came up with a compromise. He was going to send me charactered bios, and in return, I was going to make them into videos and upload them on my channel. And in return, he would give me exposure on his fairly large server. And upon receiving these stories, I read through every single one of them. Oh well, up until the 7th one anyways. Because here is where it gets interesting. The first 5 stories were entirely fine. They were on the shallow end, and they were very poorly written in the sense of being, proper big-ass character bios, but they were serviceable, I would say. They weren't masterpieces, but they did the duty to a basic degree. And as such, I didn't care too much, so I did do a little bit of flavoring myself and just describe the events a little bit more grandiose than the player themselves had in their own stories, just to give it a little bit more life, really. And like I said, the first 5, nothing special. But then something rather fucking underside happened. And that said underside thing was the 6th and 7th story. These are, to this day, the worst character bios I've ever laid my eyes on, and they are fucking atrocious. And in this video, I'm going to read the 6th story, and it is a story named Azara. Let us begin. We have a massive problem already here, because the entire thing, this entire story is named Azara. The document is named Azara, but there's no character in the story that's named Azara. There's no one here named Azara. So my guess is that the tard who made this fucking story decided that he would make a character named Azara, then changed the name because he didn't like Azara, and forgot to change the title of the story to something that wasn't Azara. Minor slip-up, but okay, fine. So, what happened then was the sheer fact that he actually started writing the story, which is the second problem, because this guy cannot spell, nor can he structure a sentence in a very good fashion. I personally think that this is kind of torturous because, good God, this is just a big block of text and it's very poorly done. And it starts off like this. While on the hunt, the group broke off into fragments. Varen and his partner went off one way, and the other members of the party did the same. Now, say whatever you want, but this is not how you start. Book 1, Sentence 1, Chapter 1. Okay? Unless you are very good at doing a follow-up on that, which this guy did not. So this sentence is terrible. It doesn't give much in the way of perspective. It gives some perspective that they aren't hunting. And it also tells us about the main character, which I'm going to talk about now. And even though he's not the full main character, you know what? I'm not gonna spoil you. I'll let you listen through this torture and you will realize exactly what the fuck I'm talking about. So, our main character, to begin with, is named Varen. His name is a bit of a problematic thing as well. Varen sounds not like a name. It sounds like something that you would use to describe something. It's like an extension of the word there. If you were to ask someone, oi, where did I put that thing that I had before? And someone else then responds saying, you put it therein, and points towards a direction. That's pretty much what I'm getting out of that name. It sounds like a word rather than a name. It's weird. Regardless, our character with a massively odd name is a massive cunt. And I will tell you exactly why. But we will start off with what they were actually out hunting. So, like I said, they were hunting in a massive group, but then they split off into fragments, 2 and 2. It is not described of how large this group is, but we can assume it's around 10 to perhaps 12 people. And they split off into groups of 2. Okay, they are not hunting deer or, something that is fairly game, easy to catch if you're 2. No, they're hunting werewolves. They're hunting motherfucking werewolves. And they decide to split off into groups of 2. May I just say that they just did the werewolf's job for them. You see, a wolf's tactic is to kind of ensure that a prey is isolated, separated. Hunters, that hunting group, want to separate 1 or 2 targets so that they can easily tear them apart by the sheer weight of numbers. And not being stuck together in a group is the very thing that probably got them attacked. Because that's what happens. Varen gets attacked by a bunch of werewolves that have surrounded him. His partner dies, but he survives. However, he has been bitten in his hand or something like that. So, he starts to panic. Why? Well, it's because when you are bitten by a werewolf, the legends state that you will eventually turn into one yourself. You become the monster. And he starts to become quite panicked, which, well, he shouldn't necessarily have to be, considering the later events in the story, but fuck it. So, they manage to kill off everyone, fight off all of the monsters that attacked them, but here's the thing. Werewolves doesn't usually attack like this, unless there's a good reason for it. Werewolves have a minor degree of intelligence, and, well, unless they actually had a reason, they usually don't attack. But they did here, so hey. And they did have a reason. And this is quite a fucking reason. Let me read from the story, straight out. The werewolves had been at war with these elves for many generations, and they finally began to organize, gaining revenges for what they have felt to be the genocide of their packs. The genocide of their packs. They have been executed, shot against the wall, fucking put into furnaces, full on death camped these werewolves. And what for? The fuck? There's no explanation either to why they do this. They've just, gone out to kill them. Oh well, they want to stay pure of race, but if that's the case, then Varen is not really a good addition to their roster. I will tell you why soon. Anyway, the Nazi elves that have decided to kill these werewolves now have gone out of their way to continue to fight off the werewolves that have attacked them. You know, the other 2-on-2 groups actually managed to fight the other werewolves off. And then they started to group up again, and they found Varen. Varen was on the ground, and he was still clutching his hand. He was fearing for his life. You know, he didn't want to turn into this beast. He wanted to be cured. There was, of course, a cure, but apparently he didn't know about it. And the reason to why is because of what happened now. You see, as soon as one of Varen's mates came out to try and help him up as he was on the ground, Varen killed him in cold blood.
You fucking whores!
It's, no. He plans to kill him in cold blood. And the reason why is stupid as well, because it says like this. Varen, who fears for his life, gets into a struggle with this elf and kills him, for he knew that the second that elf saw the bite, that elf planned to kill him. My question is, how the fuck would you know this? Considering what will happen soon. And this is why I'm saying he's such a massive cunt. And we will start to get a little bit more of an understanding of why in just a moment. And I really want to get into this. So, after he kills his friend in cold blood, Varen runs off into the mountains. And he just decides to disappear entirely. And hide from his former tribe. And afraid of, you know, returning being killed. Because obviously, I mean, no one wants to die if you are alive. That was terrible. So after Varen fox off into the forest, we get to know about a secondary character. This second character is named Angalena, or Angalena. So Angalena is a female drow warrior, and she's leading currently a band of dark elves to attack and kill, and this is the funniest part, surface elves. That's genuinely what they are called. They call them surface elves. It's fucking stupid. They are not high elves, they are not wood elves, they are not anything else other than surface elves, meaning they could be literally anything. Okay. So, during one of these expeditions, Varen found her and got into a struggle with her. Now, as they were in a struggle and fighting against one another, he killed all the other surrounding people that was there. All the other bands of dark elves that was brought along was entirely killed by Varen. And we'll get into why he managed to do that in a moment. But the thing was, as he attacked her, well, he bit her and fucked off. And this, of course, triggered her to transform into a werewolf, so she is infected now. But there is something interesting here, and this is the only character to a minor degree that I actually liked, and let me tell you why. Aware of what he has done to her, she would demand that she's cured. Not being able to find a cure, she decides she'd hunt him down and kill him, believing in the myth that if the person who turned her is killed, she'd be cured. Now, this kind of sets up a cool story, because she's on a revenge quest to look for this motherfucker who just decided, okay, I'm gonna transform you into a werewolf, because why not? And she retains her sanity. She retains who she is as a person, even though she's transformed, and she's gonna go out and hunt and kill his ass. That's her entire motivation, because she has a life that's worth to go back to. But this, in the same time, makes Varen look even fucking worse. Because if this myth is true, that if you kill the one that transforms you, okay, you transform back. This mean that Varen would only have had to think like, okay, I'm gonna transform. Shit. Huh. I need to kill the one that transformed me in order to get back my normal life. But he decides, fuck it. Why would I want my normal life back? And he just decides, fuck everything, kills his friend in cold blood, and fucks off into the forest. Because if she manages to have the mental strength to retain who she is as a person, and then he should be able to. I see nothing that prevents this, and nothing in the story is saying that either. Which means that Varen is just a massive asshole who betrayed his entire species so he could be a furry. Greg, is that you? North, perhaps? So yeah, he betrays his species to join the enemy. And what happens then? Well, he finds a female, he kills every one of her guards, and infects her and fucks off. Fun little anecdote, by the way. The reason why he could kill every one of those people is because of the following paragraph. Little did she know she'd have to kill the alpha of that pack. Meaning that Varen has gone so far down into this pit of self-obsession and hatred for his own species that he has gathered his own pack of werewolves and is currently the alpha male of all these in the group. I have a feeling the author of this story is anything but the alpha of any group in real life. So yeah, this makes Varen look like a massive asshole. But he could have been serving well here as an antagonist. I think that would have actually been quite alright, because everyone could hate him. Every single fucking one could hate him. And for valid fucking reasons. He's a massive asshole. And this girl is very dedicated in her task of hunting his ass down, because she spends years hunting him. She abandons her goddess and hunts him for literal years and tries to find him. So yeah, this sets up for a really interesting story, wouldn't it? The problem is that the author ruined it already. Because in the next sentence, after having spoken of how depressed she has been after all these years being alone and hunting him, you know, on this fucking quest, can't find him, she's starting to become depressed, which is understandable, considering that she's spending her entire life at this point to try and look for him. And as such, she's starting to lose faith in the fact that she can find and kill him. However, this is the weird thing, because as the author describes this, he says this in the next sentence. As the years passed, Varen did what he could to try and comfort his new quarry. His only contact in many years.
Oh my god.
Eventually her rage faded into sorrow from the loneliness.
Ah, this is bad!
This is a massive fucking contradiction to begin with, and it doesn't make any fucking sense. How the fuck did she become his quarry? How the fuck did she become his by any fucking chance? I mean, it's not told in the story that she has been fucking, you know, kept in a cage or something like that. There's no such description at all. It just jumps to like, oh, first she hunts him for years, and then in the next sentence, but actually she was his quarry all along. It's like, what? Did he just monologue for 5 fucking minutes and turn her away from the light and became a full-on furry as well? Because she was so lonely? No, just no, I'm not taking that. Fuck this gay-ass Earth. Thought I was dead, didn't you? So, what happened then is that, well, they decided to build a home. No, genuinely. She accepted him. They became fucking friends. Like, this guy took away everything that she may have had and turned her into a monster. And what for? So that she could be his quarry? And she enjoys it now? Apparently that's the case, because they decide to build a home together out in the forest. And they fuck. And then they get a child named Silva. This is an awful story. This is absolutely atrocious. I've tried to read through this. It is so god-awful. And I've only read through this fucking thing twice in my life, and I don't want to go through this another time, but fuck it, I'm doing it. Hashtag anything for views. Okay, so now they've settled down in the forest. They essentially live in a shack made of sticks and stones. And, well, they have a child named Silva. So, one evening, or day, I don't know, what are words anymore? Anyway, one time, when Silva was a toddler, the mother disappears. The mother is nowhere to be found. She is out hunting, but doesn't come back. And as such, the father, Varen, becomes afraid and worried. And as such, he waits until the evening. And what does he do? Well, he locks his child in by tucking it in bed and then sneaks out, putting perhaps a boulder in front of the door, and then fucks off to look for her. And after many hours of searching, he finds her. And as they are traveling back, of course, the little kid wakes up and goes outside and wonders, where is mommy? Where is daddy? Where has everyone gone to? She even managed to wander a few fucking miles away from her shack before she lost herself in the fucking woods and became fucking crybaby supreme. And apparently she was crying pretty loudly too, because she was discovered by a group of other elves. The elves saw that, oh, this is a little interesting werewolf kid, and they decide to do something smart. They decide to make a trap, where they want to use this thing as bait to lock forth the mom and dad so that they can kill it. And what about the child when they're done? This is the dumb part, because the captain wants to keep it as a pet because he feels sorry for it. I just want to point out, you do not fucking feel sorrow for this thing. Let me tell you why Silva is the worst character. And here's the fun part. Silva is actually Azara. Yes, this little kid was actually the main character all along. You've been bamboozled. You've been schmeckledorfed. Fuck's sake, this is the character that has always been about. Star Wars Plot Twist 101. The 9th episode will all be about how Han Solo got fucked in the ass by Jabba the Slut. Now, the thing is, though, the reason why this kid is an abomination is because of the sheer fact that it is a mixling of the weirdest, worst kind. Now, here's the thing. When it comes to, you know, half-elves or half-ogres or anything like that, half-orcs, doesn't really matter. Not in my eyes, not in anyone else's either. I mean, they exist as races and species, as halflings, you know? Mixed breeds, if you want to put it that way. But this one is not a mixed breed as much as it's a fucking curse, and let me tell you why. This is a elf, probably wood elf, mixed with a drow, okay? And drows are not liked by the other elves. And not only that, there's also werewolf in this thing. Yes, it's 1/3 wood elf, 1/3 drow, 1/3 werewolf. I'm fucking speechless. I am genuinely speechless. And it's described in the story that the kid can't entirely control its powers, and its powers then being transforming into the werewolf. And as such, it's just shifting back and forth every once in a while. You know, it's this thing that the captain wants to keep as a fucking pet. This drow wood elf werewolf mixling that is also a toddler that can't control his powers. Why would you want to keep that? If you feel pity for it, you do it a fucking favor and put an arrow in its head. That is fucking mercy in D&D. But lo and behold, the parents come back. They find their child being gone, and then they look for the child. They find the child, and of course, in finding the child, they find the hunters, and a massive fight breaks out. And what happens then? Well, the parents start to kill many of them, but the little kid, the toddler, was asked by the father to fuck off. No, I'm not kidding. The father falls into a few traps, and the kid wants to try and help. But for some reason, I'm calling it kid, it's a toddler. The toddler wants to try and help its dad. The problem is the fact that it's a toddler. The father, however, roars at it for it to fuck off. He wants the daughter to be saved, and as such he does it by telling it to fuck off in werewolf, and roars at it. And so the toddler tries to crawl away and manages to do so. So the kid survives and just disappears into the forest. And as it does, it's essentially realizing at this point in time, well, my parents are dead. What am I gonna do now? Well, I guess I'll die myself. That doesn't happen. Of course it doesn't. So what happens instead is that the little Silva gets discovered by a pixie. And this pixie is quite the marvelous little character, because I hate its guts as well. The pixie is named Helio. Helio is corrupted. By what, you may ask? By something called the Abyss. I am not entirely sure what that is. If it's something that's tailored to D&D, probably is, but I don't know entirely. I think it's hell, but I don't know. If you were to ask me, I think this pixie was corrupted by Snitch. And why? We will get into, unfortunately. So, the pixie essentially lures the kid to follow it, to come along, and does so well. Manages to take it to its tribe of other corrupted pixies. And this is where things are becoming fucking disturbing. Let me tell you outright what is being said in this story. I just want to point out, though, this is really difficult for me to read, because, like I said, the sentence structuring is fucking awful.
Helio had many thoughts of killing Azara, thinking of what way would be best. While trying to figure out which option he would use, he wanted to watch the child suffer for punishment. Punishment for entering his land. It was until he saw her change. The small girl under the moonlit night was no longer the elf child, but a wolf of the night. It was then this pixie decided she would now belong to him and his group. After Azara had reverted to her elvish state, Helio pretended to be kind, pretended to be friendly, pretended that he would be friends with the girl, play with the girl, and bring her to her new home. Little did Azara know that this was a trap. And upon arriving, Helio and his fake comrades attacked. It didn't take much to overcome the girl, nor was it to make her their prisoner. They kept her and tormented her, brainwashing her into obedient, into being their pet, their prize, their god dog. From that day forward, Azara knew herself only as Silva, keeper of the Livewood Forest, home to the Livewood Fae. For the next 12 years, she would serve them. They did not teach her much. They would keep her speech very simply and primitive, in the common language for their entertainment. They did not teach her more than to obey, or to be tortured. Through those 12 years, Silva grew, and as she grew, so did the rage of the wolf that lived inside of her. But chained, it was by the years of grooming the Fae creators had put her through. She knew if she were to attempt to leave, if she would disobey, she would be hurt. They would hurt her for so very long, and if she managed to get away, they would find her and hurt her. So she stayed, and she obeyed.
Now, I'm a man of quite a vocabulary, in my opinion. I have the ability to paint pictures with words that can sometimes be described as very gruesome, and I do have the ability, in my personal opinion, to make those scenes quite vivid and quite odd. But that ability fades in comparison to me reading this. Me reading what is essentially underaged BDSM pet play. So yes, this entire story is about a fucking toddler that grows up for 12 years a sex slave to a bunch of corrupted pixies. I'm not even kidding. I'm not even fucking kidding. It says in the story, it is absolutely terrible. This is torture. This story is the worst I have ever laid my fucking eyes on, and it is not yet finished. We're only halfway through, but believe me, I'm going to rush through to the end now, because I am so dog-dead tired of trying to go through this story. My eyes are bleeding at this point. It's so bad. So after having spent 12 years a slave, she then escapes because she was found by an elven knight that was walking in the forest. The knight kills all the fairies, takes her under his wing, and then starts to try and teach her how to speak properly and do some things like a normal person. However, she seems to have been mentally stunted, which is understandable considering she has lived on BDSM and spunk for the remainder of her life. Up until this point anyways, and as such, she can't learn much, but she learns some things apparently. And as such, well, he tires and fucks off into the forest himself, and she's now left alone again. What does she do? Well, she finds a group of people in a freak show caravan that she starts to become a little bit more closely tied to. So she's now a part of the only place in the world that might actually take her in, a fucking freak show caravan. And they do take her in. But she's not there for longer than 2 weeks before they were attacked by bandits. But instead of trying to defend the place and, actually do something worthwhile, she becomes afraid and climbs up into a tree and sits there for a few days. She then notices that there's some smoke coming up from beneath her. She becomes a little bit curious and looks to check. And beneath that tree where she is, there's a group of adventurers around a campfire. And as such, the story ends. This is the worst story I've ever laid my eyes on. This is a terrible fucking story. Fully summarized. Okay? The only thing that makes... And here's the thing. Her parents doesn't matter in the story. Her father and mother doesn't matter at all because they're both dead. And the character that he was supposed to play in this D&D campaign is Silva. Which is for some reason called Azara sometimes. And it's confusing as fuck, but I don't know which one's which. It's stupid. Really fucking stupid. And I am just infuriated by how absolutely abhorrent this story is. It is so terrible. And I still have it saved on my computer. This is awful. It's I can't go to length to say how terrible this is. So I'll just finish up with a little bit of a summary. So, my summary of the story. This is a story about how two people met in the most unlikable way imaginable and create a bastard love child that spends the first 12 years of its life as a cum bucket for pixies. This, by the way, is the character that the guy is supposed to be using for his fucking D&D campaign. The character Silva, this werewolf child mixling, is what he uses in his D&D campaign. This is the main fucking character. It's a awful character. It has no redeeming qualities. By the way, let me kind of tell you how this guy plays this character, because I've actually done a little bit of deduction into this. So, when it comes to him as a character, how this character is played, why I'm saying this is a furry kind of character, because it speaks in the typical, stereotypical, by the way, furry lingo that people hate, and it's awful. It genuinely is awful. It says this typical, hello, ooh, what's this, It does that seriously, and it tries to justify it by saying that it spent its first few years of its life not learning anything but simple commands and words, and as such it kind of slurs them up, and it still does, even though it was taught by the knight how to pronounce it properly. But considering the child is an illiterate, that is not so easy. So yeah, as you can see, fellas, this is by far the worst D&D character I have ever come across in my entire life. And there's a second one. How could that one possibly be worse? Well, it's not, but it still also is worse. which I will get into in that video, which will be coming this week as well, so don't worry about it. And if you yourself want to find the story, I am going to make sure that you guys can have access to it. There's no worries about that. I'll make sure that for the next episode, you guys will have a fit to download link with the document, so you guys can read the story for yourself if you want to have a good time. So yeah, thank you all so much for watching. I don't know why you did, and I don't know why I had to suffer through this, but this is an awful fucking story. And this is one of my few encounters with people from the worst parts of the furry fandom. And that's a thing I want to end on, a small anecdote about the furry fandom, because I saw in my last video there was a large common thread regarding that I even interacted in. The thing is, I do not hate the furry fandom. I think it's fucking strange, and I do not like it. I do not want to be a part of it, associated with it, having to deal with it, or something like that, because it's not my kind of thing. But the way that this story kind of goes off to tell itself, it's just so stereotypically furry in all the bad aspects that exists around the fandom. Everything is there, and it is so blatant and awful. And the fandom itself is kind of seeping through with this kind of stuff on quite a fair few places. The fandom, as far as I've noticed, have tried to act up against this, but not to the degree that I think would have been necessary for them to kind of redeem their name, because at this point in time the term furry is quite tarnished, and for quite understandable reasons. And considering the sheer fact that there have been quite a fair few prominent members of the furry fandom that has ruined their lives and other people's lives, and also made a mockery of the fandom they're a part of because of their actions within and for the fandom, yeah, it's been quite hectic for them. So that's what I'm gonna finish with. And I'm probably gonna make another video talking about the furry fandom another day, but that will be then. For now, settle with this, and do settle in for the next upcoming video, which is even worse. I'll see you guys then. Like and subscribe now. I'll see you next time.